Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Now let me ask you, do you think it's all a coincidence that all of this chaos and uncertainty seemed to start the moment Joe Biden got in office? National Security Council White House clown John Kirby seems to think that it's just the same old, same old.
Russia and China, it seems like these two superpowers are teaming up now against the U.S. Why did President Biden let this happen?
Peter, these are two countries that have long chafed, as I said to Jeff, long chafed at U.S. leadership around the world and the network of alliances and partnerships that we have. This is not something that these two countries just cooked up since President Biden got elected.
What do you think, that they're just cooking this stuff up ever since Biden got in office? Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Literally, the moment this old, senile, crusty creep got in office, the second he took over with his absolutely abysmal track record on foreign policy, the world almost overnight, almost instantaneously plunged into absolute chaos. We have not had a moment of peace since Joe Biden took office. We haven't had a single moment of reduced stress or peaceful future outcome or outlook. During 4 years of Donald Trump, the media and Democrats told us he cannot be trusted with the nuclear codes. He's an absolute unhinged maniac who's going to lead us into World War III. But you know what? It was 4 years of not only prosperity, but 4 years of peace. No wars, no chaos, no global conflict. It seemed like diplomacy was prevailing, but of course the military-industrial complex can't have that, and so they ensured their boy Biden got in office, and now, well, we're starting to see the results. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. You know, I'm getting Obama vibes. It seems like we're back in the Obama-Biden days, because we're now getting reports that ISIS is taking over once again in the Middle East.
U.S. military with a warning about terror group ISIS-K. The CENTCOM commander says the Afghan ISIS affiliate could strike U.S. assets or Western allies in less than 6 months. Our senior national correspondent Rich Hedson with more on all of this. Now they're back again.
Yeah, that's right, John. We've seen them before. You know, the head of United States Central Command says the Islamic State's affiliate in Afghanistan is about 6 months away from developing the capability to attack American and Western targets with little or no warning. General Michael Kurilla issued the warning last week as Congress examines terrorist groups in Afghanistan after the Biden administration withdrew U.S. forces from the country in 2021.
If you assess 6 months against Europe or Asia, what would you assess would be the timeline against a homeland?
I think it's hard to put a timeline on that, but again, I assess that they could in as little as 6 months with little to no warning, and I'll talk about that in the closed session as to why I assess that.
Now, the warning largely centered on potential attacks in Asia and Europe. Kurilla says it'd be more difficult for the group to attack the United States directly. Intelligence officials gave a similar 6-month timeline in October 21, as Republicans have long warned of terrorist suspects crossing the southern border.
And when you're worried about ISIS-K, they know exactly how to get into our country. They know exactly what they need to do.
Customs and Border Protection officials tell Fox News they've stopped nearly 7 people on the terror watch list at the southern border in the first 5 months of the fiscal year that began in October.
Let's do what we normally do, especially as we're heading into election season. Let's compare Donald Trump and Joe Biden's track record. During the Trump era, it got to the point where in places like Syria and Iraq, ISIS had been essentially eliminated.
This is a map of everything in the red. This was on election night. In 2016, everything red is ISIS. When I took it over, it was a mess. Now, on the bottom, that's the exact same. There is no red. In fact, there's actually a tiny spot which will be gone by tonight. So that's ISIS, red right there. And the bottom one is how it is today. This just came out 20 minutes ago. So this is ISIS on election day, my election day, and this is ISIS now. So that's the way it goes.
This is what the map looked like from the end of the Obama administration into the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. Well, after 2 years of Joe Biden, ISIS is experiencing a resurgence thanks to Joe Biden's failure in Afghanistan. You know, it's a topic of discussion that we haven't exactly discussed as of late, but it still remains probably Joe Biden's worst failure. The exact concerns that we had, exactly what we were warning, could be the potential outcome of Joe Biden's failure in Afghanistan, is happening. ISIS-K is back again, and quote, could attack U.S. interests within months. And of course, the Biden cherry on top, the Biden effect, making matters even worse. Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and now ISIS in the area have access to over $80 billion in military equipment that was left behind incompetently by sleepy, creepy Joe Biden. The question is, was it really left behind incompetently, or was that part of the plan? You know, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever you want. In a certain way, it feels as though this is what they wanted. They didn't want a properly executed withdrawal from the Middle East. They'd rather create a chaotic situation, giving them another excuse to continue their presence in the region. And who knows, maybe they left the billions upon billions of dollars of military goods there, giving them a perfect excuse to increase military spending, continuing to milk the American taxpayer for everything they've got. Same reason why they seemingly don't want to approach the Russia-Ukraine border dispute with a diplomatic strategy. They'd rather the chaos so they can continue laundering American taxpayer dollars. And speaking of what's going on in Eastern Europe, the Biden effect continues. Xi Jinping tells Vladimir Putin at Moscow meetings, change is coming that hasn't happened in 100 years. China and Russia have more leverage than ever. They feel more emboldened than ever. We're hearing reports that sleepy, creepy, piss-pants Joe Biden has been begging the Chinese not to meet with Russian leaders, and those reports continue, telling us that supposedly Xi Jinping has been refusing to take Joe Biden's phone calls. That seems to be a trend, by the way. Here's White House National Security official John Kirby, White House clown, once again, updating us on the situation.
Speaking of open lines of communication, we're seeing North Korea continue to fire off projectiles. Is it still accurate to say there's been no contact between the Biden administration and North Korea?
Not for lack of trying and not for lack of interest, Caitlin. We maintain that we would still, without precondition, be willing to sit down and with the North Korean regime and try to find a diplomatic way to reduce the nuclear tensions on the peninsula and to see the verifiable denuclearization of North Korea. But they have yet to show any interest in that whatsoever, any communication whatsoever.
The Biden administration has been trying to get in contact with North Korea, but no one wants to take Biden's calls. Wow, what a fantastic leader, a true diplomat, leading the world forward, keeping our friends close and our enemies closer. More like Joe Biden is the laughingstock. Nobody takes him seriously. And all of a sudden, every Eastern nation that wants to see the demise of the United States feels more emboldened and more confident than ever that they're winning. It's literally the exact opposite of the Trump administration. No wonder the Chinese worked so hard to get Joe Biden elected. No wonder during the entire time of Donald Trump's first term, the Chinese were held to account. The Kremlin held back. The Middle East was more peaceful than it had been in generations. And North Korea was actually coming to the table, something that had never happened before in American history. But somehow, of course, Trump is still the bad guy. This is what America Last policy gets you. This is what Obama capitulation on steroids looks like. The rest of the world walking all over the President of the United States. We're hearing the petrodollar is at risk more than it's ever been. Lines are being drawn and China and Russia are signing major economic agreements. And all the while, what is sleepy, creepy Joe Biden doing? Well, he's probably riding his bike on the coastline and taking naps in Delaware. An absolute friggin' disgrace. Trump would be taking a hard line stance. He'd be wielding and leveraging the influence, the power, the might of the American empire. And our adversaries would be thinking twice. With Joe, there's no reason to even think. Why would you need to think if your opponent is essentially non-existent? You could basically do what you want. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Joe Biden keeps intact his record of failure on foreign policy, but of course that isn't surprising at all, now is it? That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.